In the late 20th century, America, the return of Baal would bring about a cultural, civilization, and spiritual collision. The spirit of openness was released into the world, and we were exposed to a new morality. Each step towards accepting the new openness was a rejection of God and his ways. America was casting out God, just like Israel did in ancient days. God was driven out of the government, the schools, the universities, public square, out of movie theaters, television sets, hearts, music, ethics, minds, some houses of worship, and out of our lives. America was turning from God in the early 1960s and would usher in other spirits and gods in a future that no one could have imagined. Baal the idol was built in America. A Baal idol was built in America. Baal's symbol is the bull. The bull represents his power and is connected to fertility, his promise to his followers, and prosperity. The prosperity of America is tied to the stock market. It is striking that the symbol for prosperity for the stock market would be a bull. If the American stock market is headed up towards an increase, a gain in prosperity, it is called the market of the bull market. The site for the Baal idol is in New York City in the financial district, just outside of New York Stock Exchange on Wall Street. In December of 1989, a massive 11-foot tall and 16-foot long molded image in the form of an angry bull with nostrils flaring and ready to attack is a sign of Baal of appearing. It weighs 7,100 pounds. This idol appeared on the ground on which America came into existence as it was constituted as a nation. It stands where another image is overlooking it. It's the statue of the nation's first president, George Washington. After being sworn in, Washington delivered a prophetic warning. He said, in effect, if America ever turns away from God and his eternal laws, its blessings will be removed. The sign of Baal that once appeared in the high places and sacred pagan grounds of the Middle East now appeared in America. In ancient times, it appeared as a molten metal. Now the bull, a symbol of Baal, appears in New York City as a molten bronze statue. This was America's version of the golden calf, that the ancient biblical sign of the nation that had once known God had fallen away. The nation changes its God. If a nation changes its God, the nation itself will be changed. If a nation changes its God, the nation itself will be changed. Most Americans will not admit they've turned from God. They put other things in their lives to take a priority over God. The worship, the passion, and the energy that they had once been devoted to God is now redirected to what is not God. Substitutes for God have always existed, but now, since the expelling of God, these things and activities have replaced God. The change can be seen in communism, Nazism, and fascism. One God is one's ultimate reality. No matter how irrational they are, they cannot be challenged or questioned because they are now gods. New movements, causes, ideologies, and systems of thought arise. We are expected to accept these gods of political correctness or wokeness. New ideologies come in to fill the void and to rule as gods as their movements took on the characteristics of religions. The worship of Baal is one of carnality and vulgarity. Our culture underwent a process of turning increasingly crude and vulgar, its entertainment increasingly carnal, and its overall culture increasingly profane. The door had been opened for many truths, conflicting truths, and thus no truth. When one makes an idol, one is fabricating one's own God, and so one's own ultimate reality is one's own truth. They believe their own lies. Truth is now what truth is to an individual. Our society turned away from objectively to subjectively. If one's personal truth contradicts reality, it is reality that must bend into conformity. Without God, there is no more truth and no more reality. Words are redefined. What is right is now wrong, and what is wrong is now right. Values and standards that have stood for thousands of years are now disregarded with the single vote of a legislature or a president's executive order. The foundation stones of Judeo Christianity civilization can now be struck down by a single ruling of the nation's judiciary system. Now we have new truths, new laws, and commandments out of these new absolutes. If you do not conform and bow down to these new truths, you will be punished. New presentation for old gods. When America began driving God out of our lives, we began opening ourselves up to other spiritualities, New Age teachings, movements, sects, and practices. Some of these involved conjuring spirits. Others involved invoking of ancient gods and goddesses. This was the turning to Eastern beliefs and further departing from Christian and biblical faith. Masters and lords that we have been enslaved to. The Hebrew word Balaam means the Baals. The word Balaam is just the plural form of Baal. They promised prosperity, fulfillment, and liberation, but we ended up in bondage. America now serves the Baals of money, pleasure, success, acceptance, sexual gratification, addictions, work, comfort, the internet, self-fulfillment, self-obsession, and countless other gods. Instead of freedom, people are increasingly driven, restless, conflicted, obsessed, and addicted. The pursuit of money and success became an unbridled spirit and possessed millions. People have sacrificed much of their lives to the pursuit and pleasures that have led to addictions and self-destruction. People have sacrificed their well-being, their health, their marriages, their families, and their children. The truth and irony of idolatry is people worship the gods they themselves created. They have created their own Baals. The high-tech idol. The word technology comes from techna, a word used in connections with idols in Scripture. In the age of high technology came the computer. The computer represents the most sophisticated and advanced work of man's hands. Under the spirit of Baal, the Israelites worshipped and served the works of their hands. The ancient idols were deaf, blind, mute, and unable to move or act. But the high-tech idols of modern world are more powerful. They can see, hear, and speak, and do almost anything. Each generation is more attached to them, more plugged in, and more addicted to them than the generation before. It is harder and harder to break free from their spell. With modern technology, the line between image and reality have been blurred. Image has become reality, and reality has become an image. More people are living more of their lives in a virtual world, a world of fabricated virtual reality. In Psalms 115, 1 through 8, it talks about how the ones that make the idols have now become like them. The lines between man and machine is blurring. The idol speaks, hears, sees, and walks like their creator. The line became even more blurred as people began to have sexual and romantic relationships with robots. The first dark trinity is Baal showing up with the temple and arch. In the first century, in the city of Palmyra, is what is now Syria, a temple was built for Baal worship. A century later, a second temple of Baal was built in the same city, near the first. The first temple was known as the Temple of Baal, or the Temple of Baal, after the god Babylonian name. The second temple would be known as the Temple of Beshira, referring to the god as the Lord of the heavens, or Baal of the sky. Both temples will remain standing for nearly 2,000 years. Less than 100 years after building of the temple, and the arch was added, the Arch of Palmyra. The arch was the gateway through which the people of Palmyra would enter to worship their supreme deity. It stood between the two temples. In the spring of 2015, jihadist organization ISIS invaded Palmyra. After surviving nearly 2,000 years, they destroyed the arch and the two temples of Baal. In the 20th century, in September of 2016, a mystery object appeared in New York City. It is covered in a white cloth so no one could actually see what it was. It was huge. It was made of Egyptian marble and weighed nearly 11 tons and 20 feet tall. It was a recreation of the ancient arch that led to the Temple of Baal. It would function as a conduit for Baal's entrance into American civilization. It would be said that New York City was itself a spiritual temple of Baal. The location of the arch within the city was significant. It was placed in Lower Manhattan at the entrance of the city's financial district. Nearby is Wall Street, the New York Stock Exchange, and the Molten Bull of Wall Street. It is on the grounds of the City Hall, New York City's central seat of government. On September the 19th of 2016, New Yorkers gathered to present and reveal the arch. I'm still amazed that a sign was placed there by the event sponsors on which the name of Baal appeared. A city deputy mayor describes the erection of the arch as an act of defiance. A band was playing Eastern music like the music that they would have played in ancient times in the Temple of Baal. The second trinity is Ishtar, the wife and lover of Baal. I'm going to do that in the next podcast. She is very powerful, and I think you'll really enjoy listening to her because this was a god that I had not heard of before. I had been taught about Baal, but not of Ishtar. So please listen to my next podcast, and thank you for sharing it and giving me a comment.